Back to our top story tonight. The president's State of the Union address here in Washington, just a couple of blocks from where we're sitting in D.C., just a few hours from now. And House Democrats, some of them sending their own message, along with some Democratic senators during the president's speech by bringing special guests, or some of them by not going at all. More than a dozen Democratic lawmakers have invited survivors of Jeffrey Epstein's abuse to be their guests during the speech. The show of force going bipartisan. You have Congress members Ro Khanna and Thomas Massie set to sit together during tonight's address. If these two are familiar, it's because they're the two that really led that push for the Epstein Transparency Act, that push that would force the DOJ to turn over, of course, to release the Epstein documents, those files that we've seen. That's significant, right? Typically, Democrats and Republicans sit on opposite sides of the chamber. Not long ago, I spoke with one of the lawmakers who is not attending tonight, Democratic Congresswoman Pramila Jayapal, and her guest, Marijke Chartouni, who is an Epstein abuse survivor. Thank you both so much for being with us tonight. I know it is a busy night ahead. Marijke, if I can, I'd like to start with you. This is obviously not your first time on the Hill. You and I have spoken before. But tell me why you felt like it was important to be here tonight in Washington.
I think it's important to show up, to remind lawmakers that we're not going away, we're not going to be quiet, and we're here because we want accountability and we want the files released.
Congresswoman Jayapal, you will actually not be in the chamber tonight. Of course, Marijke will be there. Tell me more about why you decided to invite her as your guest and why you decided to make that move. What message are you sending?
Yeah, absolutely. Marijke is my constituent, so I proudly represent her in Seattle. And she's been an incredible, courageous voice for survivors across the country, across the world. And I think it's really important that we have survivors right there in the gallery looking at Donald Trump and ensuring that he looks at them, ensuring that he is accountable for his Department of Justice that has released only 50% of the files that need to be released and, unfortunately, redacted the names of powerful predators and left the names of survivors unredacted. Those are all things that he needs to respond to, and the investigations that need to happen are under his watch. Right now, we need accountability for these survivors, and we need to bring to justice these horrible predators and pedophiles that are in the Epstein files. Every single person needs to be brought to justice.
Congresswoman, you have talked about accountability before. There is obviously more to come congressionally here. We're looking ahead later this week, potentially, to those Clinton depositions. You've expressed your frustration pretty clearly directly to the Attorney General, of course, in that hearing just recently. What is your message to the administration, to the White House on this?
They can't keep covering this up. We are not going to sit down. The survivors are not going to go away. This is not a hoax. We're not moving on. And they need to release the files, and they need to start investigations where I believe there is prosecutable evidence. At minimum, there are real investigative leads in there that need to be followed up on. And we need to bring these people to justice, just like the UK is doing. These are all the kinds of things that need to be happening right here in the United States.
Marijke, I'll ask you here. What do you want to see next? What do you expect to see next? I know that, there had been a question about any potential further conversations with the Department of Justice. Have you had any of those conversations?
I have not. I would just like to say that Maria Farmer reported this crime 30 years ago. She's still waiting for justice. Where's her file? Where's her report? I'd like to see her report.
So you think there's still more, Marijke, that could come out of these Epstein case files that the Department of Justice released that we haven't even, necessarily seen surface publicly yet?
Absolutely.
Do you think
all the files? We're asking the DOJ to release all the files.
Marijke, just so I understand, you will be sitting with a group of other Epstein abuse survivors there in the gallery, right?
Correct.
Do you think the president will look at you, the First Lady? Do you think you'll be visible to them?
It would be nice to be acknowledged, yes, but I'm not hopeful.
Congresswoman, how about you?
Look, I don't think that he is going to recognize the pain that the survivors have gone through, nor is he going to take accountability for his Department of Justice. Pam Bondi didn't. I'm not sure he will. But what I do know is that these survivors are going to continue to demand it. They're going to demand it in the gallery tonight, but also tomorrow and the next day and the next day. And we're not going to stop until we get that. I was there at the DOJ yesterday for 4 hours looking through these files. And the things that are in these emails are so significant. And there are still redactions. There are missing files, like Marijke said. And there are files that are still redacted, even in the unredacted versions. So what are they hiding? Why don't they unredact all of that information, protect the survivors, of course, and start investigations? Not everybody that's named in these files is guilty, but there are many that are. And the people that I mentioned and the files that I went through yesterday, to me, are more than enough proof to start those investigations. And let's go through the investigation and hold these people to account if it's warranted.
Congresswoman Jayapal, Marijke Chartouni, thank you both so much for being with us tonight. We really appreciate your time on what I know is a busy evening for both of you.
We thank you for watching. And remember, stay updated on breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or watch live on our YouTube channel.